And at a very young age, I had problems learning how to do things like being able to recite the alphabet or being able to sing the alphabet in a song to people like my teacher, mother, or anyone else for that matter, especially one person whom I fear the most, my father. Now that I have grown, I now understand the fear of being beaten by my father for not knowing these things contributed greatly to my inability to learn. My father had problems with his own self-being, and he projected it in an aggressive manner daily. My sister did not go through the physical abuse like my brother and I, but she did receive the mental abuse from having to watch and listen. This was a time when my sister was very young, and she was like a sponge, soaking up everything around her. She constantly took notice to everything that was going on. My mother's share of the abuse was the hardest to endure. Physical and mental abuse that went on night and day. My mother to this day has proven to me how much of a woman she is because when the time came, she made a conscious decision to leave my father and he get herself and her 3 children out of the situation. My father was not only an abuser to his family, was an abuser to himself. He was a heroin addict. Around the age of 7 years old, I can't recall walking into the bathroom and seeing my father lying unconscious with a syringe in his arm. As time went on, I began to hear rumors in the neighborhood that my father had a drug problem, but at this time, I didn't care what kind of a problem he may have had. I only wanted the rest of my family to be safe and have a life. Any kind of life away from this one. In the year of 1979, my mother met a man by the name of Marvin who ran his own roofing company and was willing to help us in any way he could. During that same year, he moved us to Oakland. And I must say it felt good to finally feel free. Marvin was truly a helper that my family and I will never forget. He was a real man, one of few that I have encountered. But before I continue with my story, I would like to say that I am very grateful for the number one helper and protector who has always loved me, my God. At the age of 15, I began to let my guards down and allow myself to be influenced by my peers. I believe I was looking for acceptance from the people in my surrounding area. I remember the first time a friend in the group I was hanging out with asked me to smoke some weed with him. And I did just for the sake of fitting in. I could not at this time allow anything to interfere with the statue that I have now built myself up to be. Joining a gang and going to other neighborhoods to fight other youth was another pastime that I also regret. The majority of the time we join in these types of behaviors for no reason at all except to be one of the guys. We felt we had to prove or stand by fighting in numbers. At the age of 16, I sold drugs I knew my mother would be very upset with me, so I hid this part of my life from her and the rest of my family. I remember when I bought my first car and how I would hide the car around the corner so my family wouldn't see it. I would also hid the clothes that I bought and before going to school, I would change clothes in the car. Then influence I allow the group to have only began to escalate. It escalated into my first use of the drug called cocaine. The same drug I have been selling. Cocaine gave me a much more intense high than the weed I had been smoking. It had a different effect on my behavior. I could feel myself changing. I began to feel that my life was in danger and that I needed a change, and not just from using or selling drugs, but also from those influences who I called my friends. I remember telling my mother that I was messing up and having problems and that I needed to get out of Oakland. She never asked me to tell her what was going on. She was just ready to help me in whatever way she could. So she called her father, my maternal grandfather, and arranged for me to move to Henderson, Texas. My trip to Henderson, Texas was truly an ultimate experience for me. The dynamics that were going on in the city of Oakland were totally different to the life I would now live in Texas. My grandfather lived on a farm which was located in a wooded area. Instead of baffles, there was an outhouse. They were also hogs, chickens, and possums, which were our daily meals. I can recall going into the kitchen to make myself something to eat. I remember I thought I was eating a piece of chicken and later became physically ill when I found out I was eating squirrel meat. But aside from the few things that I viewed as abnormal, the experience that I share with my grandfather are forever embedded within my memory and are irreplaceable. I learned a lot from my grandfather, and for that I am truly grateful. After 6 months in Texas with my grandfather and the chickens and the hawks, I was ready to go back to Oakland, California to my loving family. When I returned home, things were not going well for my family. They were having a lot of financial problems. These problems caused my mother to be forced into filing for bankruptcy and barely having any money to buy food. I remember talking to my mother and telling her not to worry and that I was going to get us out of this problem that we were in, but that I'm going to have to earn some money in a legal way. I returned to fasten the way I knew how to make money. Selling drugs. So I was able to get us back on track and even able to become pretty tactful as selling drugs. I'm referring to it as tactful because success would be an insult to the word. Success has nothing to do with selling drugs. Being tactful comes into place when you do not get caught. At the age of 24, I made a decision to try a new drug. Heroin will now become my new drug of choice. Upon my introduction to this new drug, it was the fad to snort it through the nose. I was told that the drug was an aphrodisiac and that it would make me more of a man and that I would gain high points with the ladies. I soon became addicted to this drug as I continued to use it as I woke up and before I would go to sleep at night. I could not get through a single day without it. It was just that powerful. I would also sometimes snort cocaine with the heroin. This was called speedballing. I forgot to mention that I was diagnosed with being an insulin-dependent diabetic the year of 1985 at the age of 17 years old. I remember I started to get very sick as I continued to use drugs. The use of the drug became more important than taking care of my diabetes. I would go days without taking my medicine due to the fact that I was only concerned with getting high. At this time in my life, I began to change mentally as well as physically. I did not see this, but everyone around me did. My mood changed. I became prone to going in and out of jail. Violations of probation and possessions of drugs was my causes of incarceration. I was in and out of courtrooms on several occasions. I relatedly became a known visitor. In the year of 1993, I was arrested for possession of a $10 bag of heroin. This arrest ultimately changed the course of my life. I was brought to court to be sentenced by a judge by the name of Jenkins, a man who I didn't know at the time would leave his imprint on my life. He was like no other judge that I have ever encountered. He had compassion and was there to do more than just a job. He eventually introduced me to a program within the walls of the Santa Rita jail. The Deuce program. This was my first grasp at recovery. I completed the program and was released from jail and continued my recovery. As a condition of my probation, I was ordered to show up to court every 60 days for a progress report. Judge Jenkins expressed publicly to the entire courtroom his satisfaction with my progress. Eventually, my good standing would come to an end. I began to slip and use again. Earlier in my story, I expressed that I was a diabetic and how it affected my health when I used drugs. During my addiction, I became a patient at Highland Hospital of Oakland on several occasions. In fact, several does not compare. Try numerous occasions. One of these occasions, I saw a black man of medium height walking down the hall towards my room. It was the Honorable Judge Jenkins coming to see me. I must say, he was someone who really cared and believed in me. In the year of 1999, I was arrested for a first-degree burglary and was facing 4 to 6 years in prison. I was incarcerated for 11 months. I can't recall writing to my mother and apologizing for all the hurt I had brought upon her, my family, and myself. At this time, I was ready to get my life back. I eventually got into a program, and it laid the path to my now successfully accomplished 2 years and 9 months of cleanliness and recovery. In the year 2000 to the year 2003, I was attending Merritt College, earning my associate degree and substance abuse counseling, and looking forward to pursuing a bachelor's degree and eventually a master's degree in psychology. I'm now enjoying my new life with its new offerings and looking forward to continuing my education and dealing with my clients that I serve daily at my job, and especially the people in the community now that I've become a domestic violence/anger management/substance abuse counselor. In the year 2003, I graduated from Merritt College with 2 degrees, one in community social services, and the other degree was in community social services/substance abuse. In the year of 2008, I became a licensed level 3 counselor through Bryman Institute. My position is on the same level as a person with a master's degree. My license also gives me the power to use my license in 48 states and 14 countries. That deserves a round of applause.
Right? How you like that? That was nice. Hey, yeah, so at one of my facilities, you guys, I have worked with over 7,000 individuals, right? Just one facility, doing the now uh, 25 years of service, right? I've had a relapse in that time and got in a position where I was looking at 18 years because I entered another house during that relapse and I was called the police. My mom called the police, not knowing the severity of that call. And so they charged me with a first degree burglary, even though no one stayed in the house. Instead of giving me a charge of squatting in an abandoned dwelling, they charged me with my second burglary. And so I've gone through some stuff, but now, I actually just celebrated 20 years, March 6th, 2005. March 6th, 2005, I celebrated 20 years. So now, when March comes back up, and 2026 of March, uh, March 6th, it will be 21 years. So we got a wicked, um, off balance world. Sometimes the truth behind the truth is showing up. You know, what we once thought was the truth, we once thought to believe, we wanted to believe in, you know, a movie. We wanted to believe in that, and we wanted to believe in the internet. So what someone told us on the internet, we believed it. And a lot of times what we find is we end up getting a turn and someone puts us out there and a rumor goes out that could be true, it may not be true. So the truth behind the truth, right? What is the real truth? So we got to find the real truth. What's really going on with us? What's really going on with you? This addiction thing, man, can grab anybody, can grab your children. While we're criticizing our neighbors' kids or our neighbors that are adults, we're criticizing what we see in them. We can find ourselves caught up in the same thing, whether it's us or whether it's our kids or whether it's someone very dear to us. So my job is to help the community. I devoted my life. I remember being in jail and I'm talking to God. I was so afraid of when they said I could be looking at 18 years, and I said, I'm not that bad of a guy, right? I don't deserve that. I just been lost, right? Just help me get back, you know, please, God. So I remember being in jail scared, right? Because that's a lot of time to be sitting around a whole lot of other men, right? I was sitting in a cell and, uh, you know, somebody's on the toilet and I'm a few inches from them sitting on my bed. Uh, I just couldn't see it. So I was scared. And I remember praying to God. I said, God, I'm scared. And he already know it because God knows everything. But I said, God, I'm afraid. I can't do no 18 years. I said, God, if you let me out of here, even if I'm homeless, I will push a buggy and I will help your people. I will devote my life. I will devote my life to helping other people. I won't be wearing no masks no more. I won't be covering up like, you know, I gotta impress the crowd. I'm gonna get an attitude, a new attitude. I'm gonna change my outlook so I can change my outcome. Is what I said, and I went out and I just like I really told God. I said if I go back to drugs, God, you can give me that 18 years. If I go back to selling drugs, you can give me that 18 plus years. I said, God, if I lie to you, like I've done in the past, like many of us have done in the past, God, you can punish me. But I gave my word to God, and the thing is, when it comes to the real truth, I've been pushing. I've been pushing. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters but to be obedient to what I said to God and to myself, you know, and know that I no longer need, if I'm out of a relationship or in a relationship, I no longer need a drug to um, talk to the opposite sex. I no longer need a drug to go and play the role of a gangster. I no longer need to be high just to be part of the crowd. I no longer need to live my life top to go and impress other people. I need to live my life for me. I owe nobody, actually, right, other than my devotion to God. I owe nobody. And you all owe nobody but yourself. You need to go and stop devoting your 24 hours in the day to impress somebody else. It's about you. It's your turn, right? And I knew it was my turn. And so life has been so much greater. I remember never being on a plane, right? I remember my job flew me to Washington, D.C. I remember being down the street from the White House, right? At that time, this was 2003, and I'm in a room, $600 a night. I remember seeing celebrities and all this kind of stuff, and even taking a couple of pictures. Right, life has gotten so bad. I mean, so good. I remember before all this, when I was on the other side, using and abusing myself with those drugs, going to the hospital over 80 times. I remember sleeping on the street for 17 years, right? And now I'm here talking to y'all, right? Now I'm here talking to y'all. I mean, you know, some people are my partner. She says, hey, uh, let's go to the store. I said, I gotta get dressed for it. She said, why? I said, I gotta get dressed, right? And it's a